Well, hello everybody and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And today we're going to talk about the Leo new moon, and I'll go into more details about that shortly. But first, Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jen Tushen. Hi, everybody. I'm a Akashic healer, illuminator, numerologist, teacher, and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards. And I offer illuminating healing and clearing through the Akashic numeric readings. I do workshops. I also have a group called the Soul Pillar Salon, which is a community. And they can all be found on my website. So I'm here to share divine guidance tailored to foster that spark within, to inspire your own genius, engage your imagination, and liberate you from old stories and programming.
Cool. And I am Louise Eddington, and I'm an astrologer, a soul astrologer and writer. And what do I want to say about myself? I'm also a shamanic practitioner. I'm the author of Modern Astrology, Harness the Stars to Find Your Soul's True Purpose. And I'm about to embark on writing my second book for the same publisher. I offer soul astrology readings. I also run classes, and I have an online community membership where I have different levels of membership, and all can be found at louiseeddington.com. And I help you to live in deep self-awareness and acceptance. And today we are looking at the Leo new moon. But first of all, before we dive in and I give you all the details of that Leo new moon, I would just like to say that we are going to draw the drawing for our giveaways at the end of the podcast. I have all the names in a dish here, and we're going to draw them live. And also, if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe at your favorite podcast provider and or go to iTunes and give us a review. Plus, we also have a Patreon. For just $3 a month, you can support our podcast and the running costs, and we'll be introducing special Patreon-only content moving forward. And that's patreon.com weirdly magical /weirdly magical. Lastly, we like to feature your questions. We don't have any this time, but that's okay because we've got other things to do with the drawings. But questions, if you have them, burning questions, need to be emailed to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com, and one question will be chosen at random. No personal details will be shared on the podcast other than your first name. So send us your questions. And now diving into the energies, I'm just going to give a quick overview. Then Jen's going to pull a card, and I'm going to from her lovely deck, and I'm going to pull a card from my tarot deck. But the new moon is on July the 31st or August the 1st, depending where in the world you are. It's at 4:11 a.m. British Standard Time or Universal Time. So that's London time. So for those of us in the US, it's on July the 31st, the evening before. It's at 8 degrees and 36 minutes of Leo, with Venus conjunct at 4 degrees of Leo. It's also squaring Uranus in Taurus, and you could say making a trine aspect to Chiron in Aries also. And we'll talk about all of that and other things. But first, Jen, do you want to pull one of your amazing cards?
Yes, indeed. I have pulled a card, actually pulled two, so I'll talk about them. So the first card that came up was the 6. This is the levels, and then the actual soul portal or the visual card is the 0. And so it's an interesting combination. So I'll just explain what the soul portal looks like, since for those of you who can't see it. It's a figure of a woman, kind of pink, kind of with arms back, looking up at the sky, at the cosmos. There's these 2 portals. It's the with the Anunnaki, which is supposedly the beings who created us in the middle. And she's looking through these two pillars, kind of, that are pointing to the sky with water. And in this landscape of, it's kind of a magical landscape that feels like it's in another galaxy, kind of feeling around creation and the spiral of life. And it's about her kind of being open to what is possible. That's how I feel about this card. She's kind of like, just her heart is open. She's allowing whatever it is that needs to come in. So instead of trying to block the change or hold certain beliefs, she's just open and just curious and gazing. And my feeling when I look at her is like she's saying, I'm alive, I'm fascinated, teach me, allow me, let the light in. So it's allow ideas that I haven't experienced before to come in. Just let me be in that place of creation where I'm not held back by any kind of preconceived ideas. And what's interesting about having the level 6, is just a number 6 for those of you who can't see, is the 6 includes the 0. It's the 1 wrapped around a 0. It's considered like a pregnant woman. It's that energy, which in this way you can kind of feel this woman could be pregnant over there. That kind of open, giving birth to something new. And the 6 is also about making home where you are. So instead of waiting or trying to help other people kind of fix them or do something to make them happier, looking more at what can you do to serve without being a martyr. So there's a kind of matching energy happening here, and the colors, there is that kind of bluish, kind of purpley blue going on, and a matching energy of this idea of being pregnant with the idea that there's possibility. And where are you putting your attention? What are you devoting your energy to kind of fulfilling your divine mission and being true to yourself, or just trying to do what other people want you to do?
Cool. Well, I got quite kind of an interesting card, really. I got the Truce card, or the Jupiter in Libra card. And interesting to me, because in this astrology chart for this new moon, there's very little air element at all. And this is a Libra. This is an air element. I think we're being asked to really kind of find kind of the air energy where we can, because really in the chart we've only got Pallas Athena in Libra, and Black Moon Lilith is in Aquarius, but she's dashes back and forth in and out of Pisces, so she's spending a lot of time in water energy. So what's lacking at the moment is being able to think clearly and think differently. Whilst this is a very creative new moon, it's not of the mind. Okay, so if all this stuff behind here at the back of the card, kind of this web, this reminds me of the Uranus energy that we've got in the chart. It's very dynamic, very kind of thinking out of the box, but letting the thoughts come from elsewhere. It's not coming from this mind here, and we'll talk more about this, because Mercury stations direct less than an hour after the new moon. So we'll be talking about this mental capacity more. But I also love in Jen's card, the woman was sitting on a lily pads, right?
Yes, she's like sitting. Yes, you're right. There's some lily pads in the background there.
Yeah. And then here we have in the center the lily opening up, or whatever, and everything coming into center. There's a great deal of creativity in this, in both these cards, actually. I think expansion and creativity. but also very centered and coming together within yourself. So, yeah.
Right. Yes, definitely this woman feels very grounded, and I think that's true of the card. You know, it's interesting, the colors are similar, and I think this has a similar idea of being open. There's a similar resonance to the cards of being open, uh, being aware, and I kind of feel like when you were talking, the thought that came up is this idea of, you know, being breathless in a sense, like the idea of, how we think about ourselves with being breathless and allowing the divine to inspire us as opposed to, the
Having it
everyday.
all figured out.
Right, exactly. And that kind of rushing, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I know what to do, I know how to make things work. And instead, just kind of surrendering to that and allowing, when you are struggling to breathe. One thing for sure is that they say, like when you're in water and you're struggling to breathe, is to go still so that you don't use up the available breath. And it's interesting because when I think about it, and I think about Mercury and all of that, what's been going on, and all this shouting and yelling, and all these people pushing their opinions on others that is happening out in the world, there is a sense of like last gasp, like this is the last gasp, like I'm just going to try to ram as much as I can into other people, and so they'll know like this is me. And I'm just thinking about something. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying something, and I kind of just went off on this little like kind of tangent about it was related to what they're saying, but it wasn't. I was like, it was kind of like weird. Why am I talking about this? And I went off on this whole little tangent, and I stopped, and then she was going, yes, but it's about this. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was just, that was weird. But I think it's kind of an example of how we can do this. We've got this, like, there was just this thought in my mind that needed to be kind of expanded and expressed, and she didn't really care about it, but I obviously needed to talk about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, the energies at the moment. I was just telling Jen, and incidentally, we're recording this on the 15th of July before the lunar eclipse, because I had to do it a little bit early because of this new book contract I've got. But all this energy playing out in the public sphere, I'm not going to go into it, but it's just almost like people are just talking past each other all the time as well. And that's kind of similar to what you were saying. And that's associated with the lack of air. Please, nobody's listening. Nobody's doing anything. And then we have Eris squaring this eclipse tomorrow, and she's like throwing that apple in, going, here, let me shake it up with this one, and let me and which way is it going to go? Is it going to the patriarchy, or is it going to go to the new way? I don't know. It's all crazy energy at the moment, but
right. But the beauty is that it gives us choice and pause. When we can start to hear ourselves, our desire to speak is so desperate, because so many of us have been silenced, and there are these people that have been speaking over us. And so there is that desire to be heard. And then, of course, there's that point where we go, well, wait a minute, but why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? And kind of coming back to what is grounded and expanded at the same time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because we have a Leo. This new moon is a Leo new moon, which of course is all that fiery energy. So it's the fire of just expanding all that breath out there, the little that there is.
Yes, exactly.
Conflagration, right? Conflagration, confrontation, all those kind of things that happen when you have and I think it's kind of funny because the thought of, with Uranus being in Taurus, that's scorched earth aspect of, right? The heat of the earth heating up, and that's kind of an earthquake energy, right? Is when the earth gets really dry, then that starts these like shake-ups and things.
And of course, Uranus is actually stationing to turn retrograde on August the 11th or 12th, or depending where you are. But either way, it's 11 days after the new moon. But a quick look at what's happening before or leading up to the new moon, because we're now heading into, the eclipse season is officially closing on the 16th, or the 16th everywhere, I think. Yes, except in Australia. But but after that, we still have a lot of stuff going on. We've seen things get pretty seismic. I think Jen and I talked about that in the last episode, that we've had the earthquakes in California, and we've still got that kind of energy being triggered. But right after the eclipse, Ceres stations are direct at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, so we have her moving direct. Again, right after, we also have Venus squaring Pallas Athena, and Venus conjoining the nodes, the North Node. So we'll kind of talk about all this, because it all leads into another. We can't look at any of these as standalone aspects. But on the 20th of July, Eris stations, Eris, who is squaring the lunar eclipse on the 16th, stations retrograde at 24 degrees of Aries, and heads back to the 23-degree mark that she will square Pluto at a few months down the line. I kind of feel like she's a bit of a pivot point for all this Cancer Capricorn energy that we've got, because she keeps squaring it, and she's really shaking up the patriarchy in major ways. On the 21st, that's a really good day. People, please note that day, because the sun is conjunct Mercury. It's Cazimi. It's the day in the middle of the retrograde where the sun and Mercury bring clear thinking and floods of ideas into your mind. But on the 21st of July as well, Venus opposes Pluto, so that's a pretty seismic day. Then the 23rd, the sun enters Leo and heads towards the new moon. Mercury conjuncts Venus on the 25th. I'm only doing real major aspects. Then Venus joins the sun in Leo on the 28th. I always think of the Leo season as the kind of the real start of summer, because it is ruled by the sun, and it's kind of playtime and party time, because in Europe at least, or in England at least, everybody always used to take the last week off in July and the first week off in August, and it was called Factory Fortnight. Everybody had their holidays there. Everybody headed towards the coast. It was kind of funny. It's not quite so extreme these days, but and then just before the eclipse, the new moon, not the eclipse, the sun exactly squares Uranus on 30th of July, and then we head into the new moon. So I just kind of wanted to give an overview, and I think we'll probably allude to a lot of this, because the eclipse energy is going to be triggered again, even though we're moving into Leo, but Mercury will station direct right on the degree of where the sun is on tomorrow's eclipse. So I want to invite people to pay real attention to what's coming up for them, if they're listening to this now. If not, just think back till the 17th of July. What occurred? What was released? What was letting go? Because and what was coming right up in your face? What shadow is coming up to be released? Because there's going to be something reappearing to do with that when Mercury stations on this new moon. So,
right. And I think that's true of a lot of things that we started, maybe even the last eclipse or whatever. There's been a lot of things that we've stopped and started. You can look at like the Me Too movement, which is a great example of that it's building momentum. So it's not like just a singular thing happened, okay, we can all go back to sleep. These things are building momentum, and they're not done. And so with this retrograde, I think it's going to bring up a lot of things for us personally. And I feel like it's especially having all of, being it in this time is really about the self-awareness and awakening of who we are, as opposed to who people have told us that we are, which is right. So power, these are about power struggles and power issues. So if we don't have boundaries, then people are going to walk all over us. So wherever it is that we are overstepping boundaries or not putting boundaries in place, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Definitely.
So let me talk about the numbers, because I think this is a great segue into the sun and moon being at 8 degrees. And 8 is that number that is as above, so below. So it is, again, talking about the spiritual and material. Like, what do we want to materialize? 8 is about making things real. And being in Leo, of course, is shining your light. There's the two aspects of Leo, which is the aspect of the ego and the aspect of the kind of true light that is wanting to come forward. And then, of course, we have the sun and moon together. So there's a lot of that energy of two circles coming together to kind of break through our sense of, I can't do this, I can't be this kind of spiritual being because, I've got all these things to do, I have to be practical. And I feel like this is one of those moments where we're like, the universe is going, no, you can do all of these things. You just have to change the way you're thinking about it and what you're doing and what you think is important. So it's like all of these things kind of, the more you step into it, the easier it is to let go of things that aren't working, and it's easier to tell your truth, because that's the point. When you look at the 8, it's the sign of infinity, and the point where two circles meet. So I was thinking about the fact, Lou, that you had that card with the cross on it, which is where the 2 points meet, and I had the one with the zeros. So it's kind of that repeating of that pattern, a reminder that the power happens when you're willing to do the hard work. The hard work is being uncomfortable and holding up that kind of boundary to people and going, this is what my leadership looks like. This is what I need you to do to be in leadership. This is how we do this together. The number 8 is actually about strength. It's the idea of and courage, which is the heart energy of the Leo, right? It's that courage to push through obstacles, to do the things step by step, not just try to, just like, doesn't matter, it doesn't work. It's like the universe is telling us, no, you have to do this step by step. And when they say that, they're talking about our shift, our spiritual and physical shift, as opposed to, what can I do for my work? It all comes together when we stand in that. The other thing that's interesting is the 36, which is the minutes. And those are the two kind of parts that make 9. So we have 3, 6, and 9, which is that all those aspects of our emotions, our love of self, of family, and the bigger picture of the whole world. So that's very fascinating. Also, what's interesting is that we have it on the 31st in Americas. I'm not sure where. I think just Americas, really, but who knows? It's the idea of having it on the 31st, which 31 is, I think 31 is like Uranus's number. It's a number of genius. It's a number of sudden change, but it's also about making things real. So it's about creating and knowing what is mine to kind of make real or root and ground. It adds up to a 4. Whenever we have 4 and 8 together, we know this is destined events. And we have the 4 there of Venus, which is very interesting because of the female energy. And then, of course, on the 1st, if it's in August the 1st, we're moving into another month. This is a 20 month. This is about connection. And we dial back to July. It's about the individual shining the light. We're in a 1 month. So why this is fascinating is we have a lot of 1s here. Right? We have Mercury at 19. I think we have a lot of the female energies at once. No, not Vesta. Let's see.
Oh, you had Mars at 19, not Mercury.
Oh, sorry, Mars. Right. I'm looking at it from a different angle. My computer's in a... Oh, anyway, thank you for correcting me.
That's all right. And Juno's at 19.
Right, 19. That's right. Mars and Juno at 19. So that's a 1. Here, yeah. Aries. Let me just go. We're going to see here.
Yes, Ceres.
That's right. Ceres at 1. We also have some other ones. I see.
Oh, Lilith was at 28, which is a 1.
Right. Lilith at 28. That's another 1. And
that's all I see.
Thought I saw one more. Well, the point is with all these ones, 19, of course, they're not all 19, but 19 is a reflection of our year. It's a reflection of the July month. It is also the sun in the tarot. It's about shining our light. It's kind of the Prince of Heaven number. So it allows us to go beyond where we've been, go beyond the stuckness and the patterns, so a lot of the things we've been talking about. So I think it's significant that we have the sun and moon and Venus at these material numbers, 2, 4, and 8, right? We have 4 and 8, and the month of August is a 2, or if we add 19, well, anyway, month of August is a 2. If we add 19 plus 1, that also gives us a 20 for the day. No, it's a 4. Forget about that. Sorry. I'm trying to do both days and I can't. Just forget about that part. But the point is that it's about making it real in a new way. So all the ones are new beginnings, new focus, new direction, new leadership. It's like moving away from the bullshit and going, yes, I see that this is the way it's been, and I'm not going to engage in that way, right?
I kind of, yes, all of that. I just looking at the astrology and coming from these Cancer, Capricorn eclipses out of Cancer, where we've been in this gestation, if you like, because Cancer is the mother of rebirthing, and then we're bursting out into this creative energy in Leo. And on the lunar eclipse, but all Mercury, Venus, and Mars are the 3 most personal planets. We have closest to the sun, that is. So we have the sun, we have Mercury, Venus, then Earth, then Mars. And all 3 of those personal planets are under the beams of the sun. And on this and will continue to be until this new moon, when Mercury kind of escapes the bounds of the sun by stationing 15 degrees away from the new moon. So it feels like it feels like we are being created, and it feels, in fact, I'm going to laugh when I read the Chandra symbol in a little bit. And I laughed when I read it because it's called a solid gold egg. It feels like an egg. And Leo is very golden. And it feels like this burst of potential, of creativity, of inner child, of playfulness, of a really kind of coming out of the shell of this Cancer energy on the eclipses to go, it's time to let this true creative being self that we are launch onto the world. And by creative, I do not mean an artist. We create our lives, but if you're an artist, that's super too, because it can be that. This is more about coming at it from that creative energy of a small child, bubbling with joy. Children have no filters. They know that they can create whatever they want in their lives until we shut it down. And here we have a chance to step into this energy yet again. Always something shows up for me before we do these podcast recordings that is related to this. And I just did a reading with a wonderful person who does story time in drag with kids in libraries. And it's that kind of energy of just joyfulness and playfulness and kind of color and dressing up and allowing yourself to kind of tell your stories in not a very calculated way, just letting it all shine out. That's this is what it feels like to me. And with Venus conjunct, Venus is also very creative. You're going to hear a lot about it being about relationships, and of course Venus is about that too, but I feel this is the creative energy of Venus coming in on this new moon, the manifest, because she also represents manifestation. The square to Uranus is in a Venus ruled sign, Taurus. So creative again, and Uranus is very innovative. He's very much the energy of invention, new ideas that come out of nowhere, new, just breaking the mold, doing things differently. So overall, I love this new moon. I think it's highly creative. This July has been and is still, as we record this, a bit of a bear of a month, really. There's been a kind of, I've had a fine time, but a lot of people seem to be finding the energies very heavy. It's very contentious out there in the world, um, you know, and August has a different feel to it overall, to my mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do agree that, and I know we've talked about this previously, the idea of being, remembering the parts of who you are, coming back to it, the Cancer, uh, um, this ability with the Capricorn and Cancer breaking us up into, like breaking us out of our shell and then creating a new shell, like we're creating our new homes from our own perspective. Uh, and I think part of it, and it's interesting as you talk, because I think about the cards, right? Like even the one that I chose, Anita, this is about creation, right? In the sense of starting from the beginning. And as you say, it's not about being an artist. I mean, we all are artists in our own way, or whatever you want to call yourself. No matter what you're doing, it's a form of creation, right? Thinking, doing something is a form of creation. I do think for me, what I feel is this irritation and this experience we're having is making us kind of mature. So at the same time, as we're going into this freedom of being a child, we have to mature and go past the way we've looked at the world in a certain way. Like we've looked at it through these, rosy glasses, and we haven't seen the way things are. And
Mm.
we've allowed that, we've told ourselves these stories, and we've allowed that to control how we respond through fear. Like, oh, I can't do this, I can't show myself. And coming to that, the innocence of the child, which the child has no fear. The child has no, I'm saying, besides you have an experience, you gain a little fear, but the idea is the child is curious and open and going, I can do this. Of course I can do this. Like they don't take note of parents saying, well, that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Child goes, yeah, of course I can do it. Let me show you. Look, they're very curious. So I do agree with you. I just think that we are going through a struggle because it's been very comfortable sitting in our little shells and going, yeah, I don't really want to shine my light.
Well, we're,
But
we're kind of being asked to mature backwards in a way,
yes,
a bit like
exactly.
Benjamin Button, I think.
Right. We've looked down on children saying, oh, well, look, when we're the adults, when we grow up, we can do whatever we want. But that's the reverse, really. Children do what they want,
Yeah.
except they have to find their way through, uh, you know, adults, kind of big people. I don't know if they're adults, but
Yeah.
telling them like, okay, this is the framework. And I think that's part of it, is being able to go, oh, somebody's showing me a framework. I don't have to have an attitude or an issue around the framework. I just need to do what I need to do in that framework. And that's kind of, I think, what you're saying and how I feel about it is this is all this 19 energy, the heart. It's like you're opening the heart. You're going, this is who I am. I can reveal myself. I can play and dabble and enjoy. So instead of going through suffering about what we see other people doing, I mean, of course, it's very painful. And if we are going through something painful, we must acknowledge it. But the easier way is to go, yes, there's pain and suffering, but there isn't all pain and suffering. There's kind of this like heavy blanket around the way people look at all this stuff and go, oh, you know, nobody out there cares. And actually, somebody I know posted one of those things, and there was like a cartoon on the top. Oh, no one gives a shit, and it was like a little unhappy bird, and then underneath, you know, yay, no one gives a shit. Uh, so that was that was fun, and we were both agreeing that yes, it's great to have that freedom that nobody cares what I do. And then her point was like, but out in the world, look, there's still these people. And my point was, no, because these people out in the world, or our presumption is that they don't give a shit, so we've got to do it all, is like, this is not the way to do it. We're taking it on as a burden instead of going, yay, nobody gives a shit. That means I can do it in my own way. I can be like that child, inventing new things, discovering new things, making new connections with people, right? Working with people differently, going, I'm not upset because you had a boundary. I just want to figure out how we can, you know, play together and have joy and create new things and create a different environment.
Yeah. And you know, coming back to what you were saying about, I don't know which words triggered it actually. No, so I won't even try and go back over it. But it just reminded me. Oh, it was something to do with that meme about nobody giving a shit. It was like I wouldn't be surprised if something breaks wide open about these children in cages and about refugees and things after this new moon, because Leo's very much associated with young people and children as well, and Uranus is kind of a break free moment. Really, it
Right.
just feels like something is about to not snap, not in that, you know, because snap kind of implies a not good thing. It feels like a breaking open, and it goes back to the cards of the openness and all that kind of thing. It does feel like something is going to be broken wide open after this new moon, and we're going to start to be able to think things differently, lead with the heart, as Jen said, because Leo does rule the heart as well. So as well to do with the 19. Interestingly as well, Jen mentioned it because of the 19. Mars is at 19 degrees of Leo, with Juno at 19 degrees of Leo. And Juno is very much to do with the rights of the oppressed, and in Leo, the children. I think there's something's going to really kind of open up over this, and we can bring that creativity to that as well. Also, that Juno and Mars conjunction at 19 of Leo are at the focal point of a finger of God from Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn that I've only just noticed. And that implies major spiritual and deep transformation of the rules around something. So who knows what's going to happen on that coming into the
Right.
month of August.
Exactly. Well, I think it's really interesting because as you were talking, it's, you know, it's kind of fun how you talk and then I get an idea and I talk and you get an idea, right? It's like what I feel like as you were talking is this idea of what's happening is almost like the hardened hearts are melting, right? Because we
Mm.
see so much tragedy, like we're faced with it and we have to keep being faced with it. And so even people who think, oh, I don't care, there's a part that goes, wait, I do care. This isn't the way I want it to be. And so having that opportunity to melt hearts, and I do think there is going to be more opportunity, especially when we're given tragedy, you know, different aspects of tragedy. I do think that's going to be, this is what's going to push us into deeper love,
Mhm.
deeper holding of this space. We're talking about Cancer, the idea of protecting children. And the other thing that, of course, is with Leo is the laughter laughter, the humor, using humor to and play to engage those that have been damaged. And so many of us have been damaged in different ways. And of course, it's just horrific to see an institution or the government that we've looked up to as leaders deliberately and continuously provoking and paining, using people to create pain, and children, and separating it. It kind of boggles the mind. I think that's part of this idea of why we feel so breathless. Like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do next. And that's our mind. And so we just have to let that flame in our heart come alive and go, you know, this is what I can do. So I think that's really important. The other thing that I find fascinating, I know you brought up Vesta, and of course that's so beautiful to have that combination, again, the male-female energy of being working together to kind of bring justice or temperance, not the way we think of justice, really the divine justice, divine temperance, the idea of things being in balance, again, coming to that aid and all the other things. But what's so fascinating is where all these female signs are, and of course Ceres is, you know, she's just at 1 degree Sagittarius, so that's the fire. She just turned out of, right, she moved out of retrograde on, right, just after this upcoming.
Yep, she actually turns direct on the 17th. So
right, 17th. So that's a major number, and that's the I think the nodes, right, are still at 17. 17 is an 8. It's a number of legendary connection, like creating a new energy, a new way of being is this 17. So it's about creating success. And of course, Ceres, her daughter was, she has different names, Prosperina, or there's various.
Persephone.
Exactly. Being taken by Pluto or Hades, whoever you want, you know, stolen, like kind of what we're talking about, all the stuff that's going on, right? Taking an innocent girl down into a place to have his way with her. And of course, Ceres, at the time, she's in charge of the crops and all of this stuff and the bounty of earth. And she couldn't find her daughter, so she created winter, right? Everything. Yep. She was like, you will all suffer with me because I don't know where my daughter is. And at some point, and that's what they talk about, is the purpose of Ceres, is that she had to come to agreement, because then they had to make this agreement that her daughter would stay 6 months, you know, in the Hades, or whatever you want to call it, in the dark, and 6 months on the earth. And she had to come to terms with it. When we talk about that 6 months, again, that's that 8 energy, the balance of going, I can't have everything I want, but I have to come to the idea that my creation has to go and have its own life. My child has to go and do what it needs to do. So ownership, I think this is really important, because we have some really screwed up ideas about ownership, what we own, what is ours. And we think that our opinions are the ones that need to be, you know,
and that's all of us. Yes,
right, exactly. Every one of us, we believe that our opinions are right because they're our opinions, and everyone should adopt my opinions. I mean, I think that would be great, right? And that's the idea of being that king, right, or female, because the female is the one that holds the energy that flows through to creation, that creates things, you know, heaven on earth, right? It's the female energy, whether you're male or female. And finding that balance and the release of that, being able to birth something and let it have its own life without overprotecting it, without caging it. You know, it's very interesting, all these symbols we're having out in the world now, right?
Definitely. And the squad. I see them as Eris, the Eris figure, shaking things up a little bit. So it's not just AOC. There's the whole group of them. There's Omar and Presley as well, and what's the old Talib? That's Talib, or however you say her name. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And all this infighting amongst all of this energy. I think it's all kind of coming to a head on after these eclipses, and people are being woken up to the fact that we have to do things differently.
Right.
You know, the Uranus effect. We have to look at our relationships to each other differently, and how we approach each other. I was involved in a bit of a tussle on Facebook, surprisingly, like I always am, the other day. But the interesting thing was that we talked it through publicly on Facebook and ended up friends. And this is
Right.
like, and somebody commented that they said, this is the first time I've seen somebody fall out on Facebook, make up, and then become friends in public. And I was like, well, maybe this is a sign of things to come, you know, that we can thrash it out, listen to each other, and come to a neutral position. Yeah.
Exactly, because the point here is, and I think that's the confusion that we've all been under, like we've been trained, like don't, be nice, play nice, don't say what you really think. And that's bullshit. Like we have to say what we think. And then we can say, like I was saying, you just like you were saying, you let the air out. This is how I feel. No, I feel like this. Yay, go. And then all of a sudden you release the air. Now you're like, oh, okay. Well,
and actually, we do agree on this and this bit and
right.
that bit. Maybe
Exactly.
not on everything or the approach, but there is common ground.
Right. And we can find that way to move forward. This is the idea of why we have so many nines everywhere, is that idea of being awoken to the unity of who we are. Like the truth is, underneath it all, we're all made from the same material. Like we may not agree on every point, but I think we can safely say that most people believe everyone should have their basic needs met, right? Everyone should be treated with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
It's so all of these ideas like, oh, it's just for my tribe, it's not your tribe. What's so fascinating to me, and I think that's playing out with the group of four and the whole Nancy Pelosi thing, is this idea that, and I actually do admire Nancy Pelosi very much. I think she's got a lot going on, but she also needs to learn new things, right? She's got to move from a rigid position. It's always been
It's very
like this.
Capricorny.
Right. She's very Capricorn, but she has Scorpio, a lot of Scorpio energy, so she can really have an impact. But the point is that is so important now more than ever is we have this idea that the people that are not with us are against us, and so we must destroy them. And instead, and I see this with women, the reason to me why so many men are so successful at holding up the patriarchy is because of all the women that serve them, right? Even in these sex scandal cases, there's all madams behind collective. The women are bringing these girls in. It's just like, it boggles the mind. But when are we going to stop being in service to these men, or to this idea that I got to keep quiet and go, I can express myself? Like, just expressing yourself stops you from turning into somebody who's exceptionally cruel or unkind or all of those things, right?
And this applies to men who get it as well, by the way, everybody. So again, I'm not going to say we're not anti-men.
And yes, and so it was really interesting that there was, we're talking here about all this abuse, and then I learned about somebody who, it's a male having the same issue, right? So we can't say that just women are abused.
No.
Men are abused too. And I think it comes back to when you think about a child. If you think about each of us being a child that has the masculine and feminine, and then if we're told because we're a girl or a boy that, boy, shows anger and a girl just swallows everything, right? and we stop playing by those rules, then we change the balance, and then we have those situations like you just talked about, or like the Fab Four, whatever their name is, right?
The squad.
Right? Is the idea that they're like, we're not going to sit down and shut up because that's the way it's been, right? We're not going to just keep quiet. We're going to speak up. And that forces other women, like in this case, Nancy, to go, I am on their side, right?
Yeah,
Right. So
exactly.
what's happening is because people speak up, they're actually getting a better response. It's like healthier. If you hold all that stuff in your body, you're going to get really sick.
It's way healthier. It's and I do see the seeds of hope for all this change coming through all this, even though it seems so contentious right now. All you hear about is somebody's calling this one a racist, even though that word wasn't actually used. But and then somebody else displaying overt racism, our leader, by telling them to go back where they come from. Oh my goodness. They were born here. Oh, all three of them anyway.
People in the Republican Party, they were born elsewhere. So that doesn't even, the argument doesn't hold water.
It
the
doesn't.
point, right, is that, we have to hold up our boundaries. Yes, you can say anything, but I'm not going to just keep quiet if this is how you're going to talk to me. I'm not going to just like go, oh, yes, you're right. I'm, scum of the earth because I don't meet some criteria of yours. Just like, no, this is who I am, and I actually have a voice and I can speak out.
And I'm not going to run away and hide from it.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yes.
Which I think is that point, that it is kind of what's so amazing about being in this time is that we have more opportunity and more support from the divine to actually speak out than we did 30 or 40 years ago, right? Or 60 years ago. So it's really pretty fascinating that we can say these things, and all these people who are used to oppressing us and keeping us quiet now are confounded because we're not keeping quiet.
Exactly. And it's fabulous. I'm loving it. Oh, and there's that 8 as well. The 8 degrees of the Leo new moon is infinite possibilities, isn't it? So it's just fantastic.
And coming back to ground zero, like what is it? The 1s and the 8s, and having this opportunity to create new things. What is it that we want to create? What do we want to focus on? Because a lot of the stuff is distraction. We're looking at it, and unless we're learning something from it, like what not to do or what to do, then we're just kind of distracting ourselves and staying stuck in fear instead of taking small actions and doing our own thing in our own lives. That then, you can look at the Fab Four. That's what they did. Each one of them and all these other people, they're all doing something that they need to do. And they're not looking around saying, oh, did that get everyone's approval?
Yes. No, they are not. And, whether you love everything they say or not, you've got to see that energy in them, that how they're shaking things up. It's just anyway. Yeah.
Well, but just one more point I want to make that I think is important around that, and what we've been talking about is this idea that so many people in the news and kind of up there in leadership have this idea, well, there's something wrong with this person. One thing I don't agree with, or I don't agree with their point, so now they can go to the rubbish bin. It's like everyone has different opinions, so it's like you just love the whole of them, and you just go, okay, I agree with you on that, I don't agree with you on that, and this is what I'll do around that, right? But to say that somebody is not worth anything because they have something about them you don't agree is ridiculous, right?
Oh, it is.
It makes sense.
It really is. Oh.
Exactly. Talk
So
about
I do, because I did mention already the finger of fate, or God finger pointing at Mars and Juno. So I think that's going to be fighting for the rights of children more and more, personally, and that coming to our attention. But then I mentioned that Pluto was one of the things pointing to that. Well, Pluto is in an exact 2 bar 1 minute square to Pallas Athena on this new moon. And Pallas Athena has been in Libra for months now. She got right to the very last degree and then traveled back to 10 degrees of Libra, and now she's moving forward to this 21 degree mark. And that's bringing huge transformation. Pallas Athena is my personal goddess, um, because she is conjunct Jupiter, her father, my ruling planet in my chart, and that's why I have her on my tattoo. But she, she's the spear of justice, really. But she also represents young women. So to take her into this chart, not my own personal chart, in Libra, these young women are bringing this justice and this transformation. Whether they do it all elegantly or by the rules is actually the point of this chart, because Pluto's transforming the rules. They so it's not just that Eris energy, but of course Pallas Athena is also almost back to opposing Eris in this chart as well. So I think, and because that's our only heir, I think these young women's voices is really a major factor in what's happening at the moment. Again, whether you like it or not, or what they say or not, it is bringing the change.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that they both at 21 degrees, which of course is very significant because 21 is the number of truth, right?
Yeah.
And so and it adds up to a 3. That's that playful, creative energy of our year. It's the 12 backwards. So it's also that energizing our self-worth, like finding what we value in ourselves, or enough to transform or let go of, or let die off. This idea of being excited and passionate enough about something that you can kind of let go of the shoulds and whatever it is. And that's what these women are doing, right? They're showing us. And I think the other thing that's interesting about Pallas Athena is that she sprung from her father's head, right?
Yeah.
So this idea of springing out of patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
Patriarchy created these women. So that's something we can thank them for.
And here she is in Libra, which is another creative sign ruled by Venus that's conjunct the new moon. It's such a creative new moon, this energy. The eclipse, I've enjoyed the eclipse season personally, and I'm enjoying July personally, but I'm seeing, the contention is exhausting. A lot of us are very bone tired. I've been leaving Facebook groups, and because I've got to focus on this book, I'm trying to withdraw from a lot of the contention, even though I kind of enjoy the battle because I'm so Sagittarius. But it is tiring. I've been a bit bone tired myself with all this Capricorn, Saturn, patriarchal energy coming down, trying to stomp you out. I've had men literally telling me that, all kinds of stuff this month. It's been really interesting. But in the end, I was just like, oh, I've had enough of this shit. So I'm not hiding from it. I'm just putting my focus elsewhere. So
yeah,
on the creativity, how can I create out of this instead of butting heads anymore? So
yes, and also thinking the reason why we butt heads with people, I mean, sometimes there is things we need to speak out about, like obviously we've been talking about, and it's important. It's what we're passionate about, and it's our message and our thing. But a lot of times we're butting heads with people because we want them to change their opinion. We are triggered by their opinion, right? And the truth is, it doesn't matter what their opinion is. And so we have to find that neutrality. Again, we come back to the 8. The power of the 8 is in the neutrality of making the right choices to bring heaven to earth. And if we're all wigged out by somebody else having an opinion, or the thing we can do is protect ourselves in the sense of right?
Mm.
All this hot air. I don't have to be burning my skin in this hot air. I'm going to go into where there's water and be cool, right? So
Mm.
we can recognize things are happening without, being in the blast. Right?
Mm.
We know what's going on. We know what these people are doing. So we're not putting blinkers on, which I think is really important right now, that we want to be looking at what is real for us and what's happening in the world without getting sucked into,
Yeah.
needing to defend something. It's you know what I mean. Being
Oh, I do.
defended,
Yeah.
not.
I will hasten to add, I didn't care what their opinion was, but boy, did they care what my opinion was.
Right. So they're triggered by you. So it's very interesting. It's reversal. All these people trying to make you stay in the playground that they've created. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we've got to remember all our tools, our creativity, our humor, our compassion for these people that have, they're ill. Like, you look at these people who have no compassion for these people in cages.
I know.
Like,
Like Pence, just,
right.
oh.
I know. I was just thinking about him. But, imagine how much pain you must be.
Oh, he must be.
Cut off you are from your own humanity, that you can actually tell yourself these lies and believe it. Right?
I know.
And so the beauty is we know things they don't know. So we must use that knowledge wisely and use it to take ourselves forward and those who are willing. And at some point, these people will either disappear, die, or evolve. That's
Exactly.
right?
Evolve or die.
Right.
But it's true, and that's going to happen actually in this move into the new paradigm. A lot of people are going to, disappear.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should move on to the symbols and then do the drawing because, oh, by the way, Jen's in an aviary today. She's staying at a friend's house and it sounds like an aviary, but it's kind of pleasant. I like bird songs. So.
I do too. I think it's very, it's that energy, bringing in that joyous kind of expanding energy,
Exactly.
listening to music, dancing, allowing these bells and things.
Exactly.
It does raise our vibration. It's so fun. Right.
So I think because I mentioned it already, I think I'm going to read the Chandra symbol first, and then I'm going to do the Sabian. They're both really good ones. So listen to this. So I mentioned it's a solid gold egg. And the bare stark truth, the singular accomplishment of heavy labours, an extraordinary gift, yet it is endangered. The gift is to be quintessentially yourself, and this gift abounds. Surrounded by danger, seen falsely by others, turned around. Digging your way out of history, you are compelled to puncture the illusion of image. The drama distorts. What is pristine remains inviolable. Yes. Yet so much is lost irretrievably. Each subtle weakness takes charge, the long way around to a very simple quality that would mean nothing unless it were first gone. Suffering and self-knowledge, all comes easy, nothing comes easy. The riddle of destiny. Now, there's a lot in that. It's very kind of compact and complex, but basically I see it as this golden opportunity with this egg to leave behind. There's an element with Leo because it's the sign of drama and pretend and play acting. There's an element that to not be self deluding with that. Are you play acting or are you kind of having fun with it, kind of thing. There's this whole riddle in this, about playfulness and when we step into the true creative beings that we are, the gift that is quintessentially yourself, as it says, this gift of creation, of birth, this gold egg really does open up, so long as any kind of play acting you do is not just to please others. That's what I think it's kind of saying.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It almost feels like that's the key to, go into the deeper mysteries, is by, really opening that golden part of yourself and being willing to share the joy, just because you are in joy and you're not worried about what other people think about you. And
Yeah.
that comes, it activates others, because everyone's like, I want to be in that, right? Yay, me too, me too. And it's like we're sharing that vibration.
Yeah.
So I think that really does speak to the energy and what we've talked about. All right, let's see. So the Sabian symbol for Leo 9, glass blowers shape beautiful vases with their controlled breathing. The keynote is the need to involve one's most spiritual and vital energies in the creative act, if it is to produce significant and beautiful new forms. The breath represents the power of the spirit, animator of all living manifestations, because the glass blower uses his breath to shape the glass vessels. He is a fitting symbol of how deeply any creative individual has to involve his total being in her creation. He is also using the fire of the spirit, transpersonal inspiration, or in another sense, the fire of deeply felt emotions. Any creative activity which does not involve both the breath and the fire cannot transform into beautiful artworks, or indeed into any new form of order. The raw materials remains of the past, the sand, which is the fourth. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Creative intensity is part of the journey. So yeah, I think this just speaks to, again, that idea of creation, like what you were talking about, the golden egg, or the breath and the matter of what you're willing to transform, right? Basically, all of us being willing to take our masks or our play acting, the fake acting, to kind of use that as the sand and the information. And it definitely feels like Uranus, is so impactful in this, because
Oh,
you're being in Taurus at 6 degrees, and are getting ready, or completely slow down. I know it moves very slowly.
I think he's
Yes.
very impactful on this new moon indeed.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we didn't really touch on Chiron much, but the point is the Chiron, with that idea of taking our wounds and shaping them into these beautiful forms of new expression. I think it's pretty a phenomenal moon in so many ways.
It is very exciting.
Yes.
So, we're going to do the drawing. So, because Jen and I are in separate states, I did the little bits of paper. So maybe, Jen, you announce which prize and I dig into the bowl. So,
All right.
mix them up. You can see that, so mixing them up. So we have 4 prizes. So Jen, I'll let Jen announce the prizes in any order she wants, and I'll draw a name.
Hopefully I remember what they are. I think I do. Okay.
So which one's first?
Okay. The first one will be, I think it should be your book.
Okay. Signed copy of my book. Okay. Is going to Wendy Ramos. So I'm going to write Lou's book on that. So I don't remember who won what. We'll have to listen to the recording again. Okay, congratulations, Wendy.
Yes, congratulations. Very exciting. So the next one will be, all right, I'm going to mix it up. So the next one will be Jen's Akashic reading.
Okay. And this is Amanda Potts. I will be emailing, or Jen will, whichever, for the details we need, or to connect with you to do these things, by the way. So in the case of books, that's for the address, of course. Okay, what's number 3? 2 prizes.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Amanda.
Right. And then the next one will be, Louise's reading. What was it, an astrology?
Yes, it's a eclipse reading, looking at where the eclipses, the current ones and the ones in December, January, fall in your chart. And it's an audio, so I'll email for the details again. And this is Genevieve. I think she's in Canada. So congratulations, Genevieve. I love your name. I love saying your name.
Lovely. And then the final one will be my book, signed copy of Les Chic Coucou.
Okay, so who is the lucky last one? Oh, Rachel Burwell. Kind of glad she didn't win my book. She's already got it.
Yeah, that's lucky. Yes. Well, congrats, Rachel. All right. So we'll be in touch with all of you. And thank you all so much for all your wonderful reviews and your enthusiastic response and all your stars.
Thanks. Yeah, we really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be doing another giveaway at some point. So, keep listening. And things, but keep sharing our podcast. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate any reviews. The more we get, kind of the more visible the podcast becomes on iTunes. And I don't know if you can leave reviews elsewhere. I don't know. I'm not, because I listen on iTunes to podcasts. So.
Yeah, me too. So I don't know.
But so for now, I think, Jen, just tell everybody where they can find you, and I'll do the same, and then we're done for today.
Yes, thank you all so much. We're very grateful. And send in your questions.
Oh, yes. weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can find me at jendershen.com. I have a group on Facebook that is called the Light Club of the Woo-Woo Weirdos of the World. That might change, but find me there. Find me on Instagram. I do some writing on Medium, and I also have a new page on Facebook under my name, Gender Shen. And my group, Soul Pillar Salon, is on my website if you want to join. And the cards, Illuminating Journey cards, are also on my website at jendushen.com/illuminating journey cards. So I'm everywhere.
Yeah, me too. I'm mostly on Facebook, although probably for the next 7 weeks, slightly less while I get this book written. But Louise Eddington, Google my name. My website's louiseeddington.com. I have a free Facebook group called Planetary Magic Cafe, where we do fun things in there, like we're doing a morning pages challenge at the moment that's free. I have a membership site that you can link to on my website with different reward levels. It works very similar to Patreon, but Patreon kept marking my content adult because I post some fantasy pictures sometimes, and I think there was shaded out boobs. And it kind of annoyed me, so I thought, I'm bringing this to my website.
Must be that cherry on fire.
But I write for my members. I do months ahead videos, depending on what level you're at, or there's a membership group with mini readings every month as well. So check that out. Instagram, Louise Eddington on Instagram. I'm really enjoying Instagram lately, so I like that place. It's fun. So come and follow me there. I think that's everything. I'm actually not offering readings until September now, because I have to get this book written. So if you do want a reading, they will be available the first week in September. So, but the membership site will keep going. So from now, that's it. And happy, very creative new moon, full of possibilities, full of joy and fun. But it might be a little bit of lording over each other if we're not careful to. So follow what we've said. Any last words from you?
Do laugh.
Yes, laugh like Jen and I do all the time. So, so for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.